All righty. Now let's get into the Scott Demore stuff. Um, so Scott Demore, he did about a 2-hour podcast with Chris Van Vliet. Hold on, swig of coffee for Chris. He's like pro wrestling's Oprah or Larry King. No matter what you've done in your life, um, he will talk to you and he'll let you have your say. And I think that's good. Like everybody hates Chris because he talks to bad people and he doesn't really challenge them, but he's a very talented interviewer. And the format on his show is he takes people to, you know, he gets people to open up about themselves and they go long form. And he's a very comfortable guy to talk to. And his interviews are always very good. And I thought this was another example of that. I thought this was a great interview. We got insights into Scott that I don't think that we've ever had before. And so credit to Chris for doing that, and credit to Scott for opening up the way he did and being a good storyteller. And he's a showman too. So, and he'll admit that. So, I thought that it was a great interview, and we got some insights into it. And what I want to do is bring up. I want to bring up that kid Airgold, who I think might be Julian Weeks. I started that rumor a while ago, and people just kind of latched onto it. So if we just keep going with that rumor that Airgold and Julian Weeks are the same person, I think that's hilarious. Because at one point, like some people were like, "Hey, is he really Julian Weeks?" It's like, I don't know, I don't think so, but I just started saying it because I thought it was funny, and because I was saying it, people thought it was true. So I was like, oh shit, they thought I was reporting it. I was like, oh, dude, guys, I'm not a fucking reporter. If I'm saying something, it's because somebody else said it. but yeah, he actually kind of clipped together. So I'm gonna play like 2 minutes of the interview here, and then we will talk about it. Here's Scotty D on let's see on Kenny Omega and Kenny Omega's time in TNA.
We never got a chance to put Kenny Omega in front of a crowd.
Yeah,
like we would have been selling a lot of tickets at that point with Kenny Omega.
Yeah, he was your world champion.
And you know, Kenny was amazing coming in, and I don't know if people ever realize how banged up and hurt Kenny is. And there's people they're like, oh well, Kenny like mailed it in. I watched Kenny get worked on for 90 minutes to try to get enough build up enough strength to go out there and wrestle Moose at 1 a.m. in Jacksonville. And people are like, oh, well, Kenny phoned it in. Like that guy could barely walk. And then that guy sat there apologizing to Moose, giving him Moose a great match that few people in the world could give me. I wanted to do so much more. So sorry. He was great. Now you look at things like, hey, things are going good for TNA now. People go, oh, well, they don't like that Kenny didn't get to drop the belt. Kenny would have dropped the belt, would have loved to have, wanted to put Josh over, wanted to work with Eddie Evans, just didn't pan out. Like some of the things that we saw with AEW, like haven't happened for the TNA relationship yet. Like people will point, I love it. It's like somebody pointed out that, TNA has record low viewership, like on one of the Omega shows. They point out that it's something where none of the DVRs work and some systems were on blackout. Point out the other fact, point out that the highest rated show in the history of Access TV, the highest rated, not just Impact show, but the highest rated show by a long shot, there would be on Access TV, was that 268 overnight number that Kenny did that grew that well into the threes by the time he did the +3 on the +7. High, like we never did numbers like we did when Kenny came in there. When Kenny came in, the Rebellion with him and Swan in the main event, the title versus title, set a record during the Anthem era of buys. It was 3 to 4 times higher than any of the shows leading into it had been. And then the next one, the Slammiversary with Sami Callihan, was the third best show of the Anthem era. It was literally the Kenny Swan one was built off of here's Kenny Omega, here's Rich Swann, title for title. I don't discredit the fact that there was really no reason for them to do it, no reason to loan us Kenny Omega the way they did and feature him the way we did. which drove money, both pay-per-view buys and television ratings and stream numbers, which turns into monetization. And those clips still to this day perform better than a lot of the other clips that TNA put out.
All right. So that was Scotty D. Lots to unpack there. And oh, hold on. Stop it. All right. There's lots to unpack there. And I think let me get this. So I think I agree. I agree with Scott. I liked the Omega run. Now, was I disappointed that Kenny Omega didn't drop the title to a TNA guy? Yes, I was. I thought that was really the best way to handle that. And AEW was, and based off of what he's saying right there, and he's being very diplomatic. Now, you guys got to remember that Scott D'Amore has Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling coming up, and he's already booking Takeshita. He's going to want to be able to use AEW talent. He's going to want to be able to use TNA talent, right? He's going to want to be able to use New Japan talent. He might even try to get WWE talent on those shows, because what he wants to be is kind of like Switzerland, or what the old Maple Leaf Pro was, where, back in the day, you would get, on the same show, you would have an NWA world title match and a WWF world title match. You'd have Bob Backlund defending his title, and you would have Harley Race defending his title on the same show. And you would get Vern Gagne on a different show. You know what I mean? Or Nick Bockwinkel defending the AWA title. He's trying to become that. And I respect that. So if you guys were going to think that he's going to come on that show and bury AEW, you were wrong. He's not going to bury TNA. He's not going to bury anybody. So, and that's not smart. That wouldn't be smart of him to do that. And I don't think that's in his character. Would he do it off camera? Probably. So, but yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I was disappointed that Kenny Omega never dropped the title to an Impact guy. I didn't think that was a good thing, but I thought the alternative was like the best alternative that we could have gotten, which was getting Christian Cage back into Impact, which I thought was fun for what it was. Christian Cage didn't lead to numbers, but that's Christian Cage. He's not a draw. He's a very good wrestler. He's one of the, and he was he was awesome coming into Impact, and I thought that was fun. And I really liked his TNA run in 2006, that 2 years that he was there, 2 or 3 years. I think it was 2006 to 2009. I thought that was a really good run. And it was a pivotal run in the history of TNA, because he was, and I think, and Scott D'Amore said this on, Scott D'Amore said that on that podcast, that he was really the first guy to leave WWE and come to TNA. Like, he wasn't a guy that was fired and TNA hired him. He was a guy that his contract was coming up, and he willingly left WWE and came to TNA. And he did it before Kurt Angle. He did it before anybody. So I thought that was awesome. So getting Christian was really cool. So I thought that was a good alternative. But it would have been better to have Kenny Omega lose to Josh Alexander. But if you listen closely and you pay attention to what Scott was saying, Kenny Omega was willing to do it. Now, Kenny Omega went on a live stream and said that he was willing to do it. Like, it was a Twitch stream from a few months ago. He said Scott D'Amore wouldn't allow it to happen, but Scott D'Amore was saying, kind of hinting at that AEW wasn't allow that to happen. Kenny Omega was their top star at the time, and this was before CM Punk. You guys got to remember that. So he was their top star. He wasn't about to let his top star lose to a TNA guy. And he wasn't able to lose to a AAA guy either, because whenever he was hurt, he ended up just forfeiting the title. And then that was it. So they might have thought that they were going to be able to get Kenny Omega to drop that title. And maybe AEW made TNA believe that. I don't know. But I don't think that was ever really in the cards. I think they were just going to try to figure a way out of it. And then this was the best solution that they could come up with. But again, I wish it was different. I want to make mention of kind of what TNA from the TNA fan perspective, and I thought that Talking TNA did a great job. So let me go to Talking TNA. I'm just gonna hold on. Let me pull this up. So Talking TNA. This is a really good TNA fan Twitter feed. And he's like a reasonable guy. I don't think that he's a delusional dude. I think he does a really good job. But here's what Talking TNA says at Talking TNA. So everybody go follow him. He does a great job. So most people debating aren't genuinely interested in the actual success of that partnership, but rather putting TNA in the middle of a week-to-week pissing contest between AEW and WWE. That is so true. So freaking true. He goes on to say, a lot of TNA fans in hindsight don't care much for that partnership. Why would they? The top guys got buried. I disagree with buried, but I see his point. The top guys lost to Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega defeated Rich Swann. Now, Rich Swann gassed out in that match, so Kenny kicked his ass. But that was on Rich. That was on Rich. But yeah, the top guys got buried. So he's talking Rich Swann, Moose, and Sammy Callahan. And they were the like Josh. So you got to remember 2021. Josh Alexander was on the come up. He was not a main eventer at that point. They were trying to make him into a main eventer, and then he ended up becoming one at Bound for Glory that year. And he cemented himself as the top guy in TNA by submitting Christian Cage. Right. So you guys got to remember that. So, but at the time that Kenny Omega was there, Josh Alexander wasn't one of those guys yet. And there was no comeuppance. Khan appeared just to dump on the show every week, and everything quickly fizzled. No fan base would love this, and it's wild that TNA fans are being gaslit into thinking this was overall enjoyable. With that said, I'm sure it was great for business, and I can see why a promoter would defend that aspect of it. It's quite literally his job to do so. So yeah, Scott D'Amore promoted this whole thing at the expense of the fans who hated it. They hated it. So while people on the outside of TNA fandom are like, and here's the thing that I don't like about the people from the outside of the TNA perspective, the TNA fan perspective. They're not taking what they enjoy into account. They're saying you guys should just feel lucky and blessed that Kenny Omega bestowed his presence upon you. You should just, kiss the feet of AEW and Kenny Omega because of the business that it drove. When in reality, from the TNA fan perspective, based off of what they're watching on TV, they were just being buried, shit on every week, and then all of a sudden AEW disappears, right? Like, and that quite literally is what happened. Okay, so WWE fans dump on AEW ratings and attendance every week, and the standard defense is we don't care about numbers; it's about what happens in the ring. Same applies here. It was good for business, but at the expense of the product that a lot of fans enjoyed and were invested in. So that is another very good point. AEW fans only care about ratings and numbers when it caters to them. So and AEW fans feel like they are above TNA fans because the TV show that they watch has more people watching it and generates more revenue, when in fact you guys have nothing to fucking do with that. You're just a part of the ride. Like, you don't actually work for AEW. You're not there, right? So you're not above anybody. You're not. But that was another part of the reason why people like this current WWE partnership is because the WWE fan base is not doing that to TNA. They're just not. They think this whole thing is cool. But AEW fans were like, you guys, why are they doing this? TNA is so beneath them. And TNA fans, they want Kenny Omega to lose, but they should just feel lucky and blessed that our guy is even willing to go over there. He goes on to say, the WWE partnership is entirely different. We have to be honest about where they are as a company versus everyone else and set the expectations based on that. Nobody knows how things will work out long term, but short term, it's fun and to see some fresh faces in TNA and TNA get wins. Yes. Other than the Christian Cage match, TNA never got any wins over AEW talent. They just didn't. Like, Kenny Omega came in, went undefeated. Christian came in. He defeated Brian Myers and Ace Austin, and then eventually did the lost by via submission to Josh Alexander. But that was it. I think Private Party came in and they didn't win, but they didn't lose either. They were in a 3-way match, I believe. Now, Good Brothers did go on to AEW and get some victories. I think they did. So there is that. So it was very few, but right now, TNA, as far as getting victories on WWE television, on NXT TV, they're doing very good. So, and they're not being treated as less than and second class citizens. They're being treated as stars. He says it's also fun to see deserving talent perform in front of a vastly larger audience while still representing TNA. Nobody should be overly concerned with poaching. He might be talking about me here because it already happens by both the large companies, partnership or not. Yeah. So that the poaching stuff is inevitable. That's just going to happen, which we've talked about here. All right. Hopefully it continues to evolve. The partnership doesn't need to be everything all at once. Just because mega stars aren't showing up weekly to tapings doesn't mean it can't hit another level. And if it never does, we can reevaluate the partnership as a whole down the line. Yeah. I think he makes very good points there. I thought that was a great rant, and I wanted to give him a shout out. I especially because I think that that guy does a very good job. But so yeah, here's the thing. We've been talking about it every week, and I'll go ahead and drive the point home that, part of the reason why, the fans like this partnership more, even though the Kenny Omega partnership drove better business on the short term for that specific rating. So, they got, whatever the overnight rating for the Kenny Omega debut was 268. I think the live viewing of it was 220 something, 220, in the 220s, and then the overnight rating was 268. And he said that the +7 got over 300,000. But then if you take a look, they actually put the whole thing up on YouTube, and they put the whole thing up on Facebook. So we were looking at close to 1 million when it was all said and done. So yeah, clearly. And he said that was the most viewed show in the history of Access TV. So it wasn't just a history of impact on Access. It was in the history of the channel. Okay. But that quickly fizzled out. It quickly fizzled out because after a while, AEW fans were like, we can still just see Kenny on AEW. And there was no synergy between the two shows. So what Kenny Omega was doing on AEW didn't filter over into what was happening on TNA and vice versa, other than when Kenny won the championship against Rich Swann. And AEW never promoted that match. They never said that is a possibility that Rich Swann could be their world champion. They never said anything like that. We did get commercials, but that was about it. They never really said it. They didn't want anything to do with Impact on their TV show. So nothing ever bled over into the other, right? Right now, there's synergy between NXT and Impact. Things that happen on NXT filter over into Impact and vice versa, right? Like Joe Hendry wrestling Gallus on Tuesday, he's taking on whatever Gallus guy number 1, and then on Thursday he's wrestling Wolfgang Puck, that type of stuff. So it was the situations couldn't be more different. It's apples to oranges, and I could see why TNA fans would like this current NXT partnership more. I can also see why the talent like it better because other than the Good Brothers, who were already famous, who already had, big runs on WWE television, nobody from TNA got shine on AEW. Yes, they did bring in Deonna Purrazzo. They beat her rather quickly, and that was really a tryout match. Yes, they did bring in W. Morrissey. He got beat by Wardlow in 5 minutes, 7 minutes maybe. They made him look strong, but still beat him rather quickly. And that was, again, a tryout match, right? So they never really brought TNA talent over and were putting them over to get notoriety on them and then send them back to TNA. They didn't. They just kind of used and abused them. But again, I got to say, I liked the Kenny Omega run. I thought it was good television. It was successful television. I really loved the match. I thought the 3 big matches that he had, and then he had, of course, they did some trios matches with the Good Brothers. I thought the matches were all very good. I thought the Sammy Callahan honestly was the best of them all. I thought that was a great match. Io corrects me. Yeah, Motor City Machine Guns did appear once. Yeah, they were baby faces in TNA. They got brought in as heels in AEW, and they were part of a trios match on pay per view, which they quickly lost. So, and then the match like under delivered. So it was such a it was a weird thing, but so we were trying to they could have built up a dream match between FTR and the Motor City Machine Guns at All Out that year, but what they did is they just did a trios match and they teamed them up with Jay Lethal. It was so weird. So weird. They had no rhyme or reason. It was just like, and you could tell they were just pacifying FTR, who wanted to work with Motor City Machine Guns, but they wanted to get more of their talent on, and that was really it. So, but yeah. So we're gonna put a bow on the AEW on the AEW TNA relationship.